We are at 21 games in which BYU is 19-2. In the 2 losses, they were both by less than a score. Let's just start believing and saying that this team's legit. We've got to be leading the chorus that no, this is not luck, that these guys are just freaking good.
Hello and welcome to the Aptive Podcast Studio. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds, alongside Tosh McIntosh. Tosh, how was your weekend?
It was pretty dang good. As we'll talk about, exciting Cougars win. I coach a 3rd grade team. We lost in the semifinals. That hurt a little bit, but my kids had some Halloween parties. Overall, fantastic weekend.
Trunk or treat weekend usually for, it seems like for most.
Our awards was last week, yeah.
And of course, BYU winning. So let's talk real quick about the top 25 because BYU finally jumps into the top 10. I still think a lot of BYU fans have some angst over the top 25 and where they should be. Is 10 a worthy number for BYU? They are the only undefeated team, by the way, without a P4 team, at least, without a single digit next to their name.
Yeah.
Are they too low? Even at 10, are they too low?
They don't have a good enough ranking. Yes, I agree. Their ranking is not what it should be, and it all comes down to where they started. And I think we were 1 or 2 off. So, for instance, Indiana started the year ranked 22nd. They are now ranked 2nd or 3rd. And I think it really starts because they started ranked, and that matters a lot in these ranking people. Just look at their list and think, oh, who won? Let's move them up a little bit. Where BYU was started unranked, technically, if you look at the points, they started ranked 26th. And that one spot, I absolutely think is costing us. I think we'd be ranked 5 or 6 if we would have started in the top 25.
Yeah. And I am still of the opinion that voters, they go back and they look at the current top 25 and they say, okay, we're going to reorganize these teams based on who won and who lost. And BYU being on the outside looking in, I think really hurt their ability to jump into the top 25. Now, they didn't play anybody early in the season, as we know. But because they were outside of the top 25, it didn't matter who they played. It didn't matter if they won or lost because they weren't part of that original top 25. And we saw the parity kind of diminish throughout the season where I think the first week of the season, there was like 20 teams that were getting votes that were outside the top 25. We're now, I haven't looked at it, but we're now like below 10, right? We're now like 10 or fewer teams are even getting votes in the top 25. And so I think voters are starting to figure out like who's actually good and who's not, and obviously there's upsets throughout the year. But
the other bullcrap part of it is we finished last year ranked number 13.
Yeah,
and that should have had some rollover this year, and it really didn't. And so, again, if I'm part of the team or part of the staff, I'm saying let's control what we can control. Let's not worry about it. But guess what? I'm not. I'm a fan. We're on a podcast. And so I do care about it. It matters a lot, and I do think we're getting ripped off.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how it affects the college football playoff poll when it comes out, because I think there is some effect. Obviously, the AP Top 25 doesn't have any effect at all on postseason play, on where teams go in the postseason, but I do think it does affect the committee. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to just some quick official business here. We've got the drop this week from the CB merch store. The classic Cosmos Scuba hoodie is I actually really like this material. This one's got a Sailor Cougar on the front, and then on the back, I love these like hoodies with a design on the back. I don't remember ever growing up with these, but these are kind of the cool thing now. Sailor Cougar on the back, some interesting Brigham Young
in the black and blue,
font.
and as he mentioned, it feels really good. That texture on that one is really like a high-end.
It's like
texture.
A workout material, yeah.
So, and then we have here the Camo Cougars hoodie.
For the hunter.
Yes. Funny enough, I grew up very rural, very hunting environment. I used to wear camo because I was poor. Now it's cool. Now everyone's wearing camo. And Cougar merch is getting behind that. Nice camo hoodie with the Cougars on there. You could wear this to impress your wife. You could wear this to pick up girls if you're single. It will work. Camo Cougar hoodie.
And then obviously the Air Bear tee. For those that didn't see the Air Bear tee last week, it just has a Bear Bachmeier Air Bear on the front, and then on the back it's like the bear AI version of Bear Bachmeier. I think he's doing his hurdle. It's like that.
Doesn't it say the bear is loose in Provo?
It says there's a bear on the loose in Provo. Yes.
Yeah. Great shirt. You should pick that up before it's gone. That's going to be one that's, I think, going to be a really cool time capsule of that game.
Yeah. So head on over to the CB merch store and check those out. All right, let's look at the Iowa State BYU game, because this was a game, again, BYU finding a way to come back from down 2 scores, right? Down 14. And early on, look, I thought BYU, for the first possession at least, they looked like they were going to keep pace, at least with Iowa State's offense. And that was what I was most worried about, was like Rocco Becht and their ability to pass the ball. This is a quarterback that's not necessarily elusive and mobile like BYU has seen the last 4 or 5 games, but it's a guy that can stand in the pocket and deliver an accurate throw to his receivers, and we saw that in the first play of the game.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, 75-yard bomb to start it off. And then, yes, like you said, we responded that we scored, which was huge. But then it just looked like our defense had no chance of stopping them. So, again, I had the same sort of angst feelings that I had against Colorado, that then I had now against Iowa State, where I'm like, we're going to lose. Like, it's been a good run of undefeated, but it's ending today. I mean, I was starting to think that.
Yeah. I think by the end of the year, my head is going to look like yours with the amount of hair I'm losing watching these games. But yeah, just by the numbers, BYU did not run the ball well. We'll talk about LJ Martin's injury in just a second. They didn't run the ball well. And this kind of, it leads us to the next topic, which is we talk about Bear every week, and there's always seems to be kind of this caveat of like, Bear didn't make a mistake. Like Bear relied on his other weapons, and obviously Bear has played really well all season, and we've talked about that. But this was a game where Bear had to take over a game, and I think this is the first time he really was forced into that position. That's not to say that he hadn't taken over parts of games in the past, but LJ went down early, and Bear had to – they turned into a pass offense.
Like totally. They look like Mike Leach out there. Like they were not running the ball. They were not doing play action. It was just everybody on the field, everybody in the stadium knows we are passing the ball. And they were doing it anyway and doing it effectively.
Yeah. Because when Rex comes in, right, LJ goes out, Rex comes in, and Rex is fine. Nawahine was okay. They're getting 2-3 yards a pop, but they're not LJ, right? And LJ's first touchdown run, let's talk about that, because, it's only, 4 or 5 yards out, but the way LJ is able to make a guy miss in a tight space like that, the guy has the edge set, right? I don't know if he was a corner, a safety, a linebacker. I think he was a safety. He crashes.
Because they run a 3-3-5. So they're safeties. They play down to set the edge, yes.
Yeah, it's a pseudo linebacker. And especially at the goal line, right? They're down low. They're crashing. The guy set the edge, right? And LJ could try and, pop outside and get around him and go for the pylon. That's not likely, right? But what he does is he fakes right and goes left, and in this tight space makes a guy miss and runs 4 or 5 yards for the touchdown. And I think those kinds of runs just go underappreciated when you look at LJ. And that's how LJ runs. LJ's ability to make guys miss is just as much a part of his game as his ability to get tackled going forward, right?
Yes. Those are 2 elite skills that he has. He's much shiftier in tight spaces than people realize, and his legs are freaking huge. And so it does seem like he uses that to where it looks like he has no chance, still get 3-4 yards. And our other backs do not have either of those elite skills. They all have some things that they're pretty good at, but he has NFL talent in both of those, and that's why he looks so good for us.
And that's why BYU needs him in 2 weeks.
Yes.
We'll talk about his injury in just a second, because I've heard some kind of preliminary reports coming back. Let's look at just this game by the numbers, though, because, again, for the second straight week, BYU finds a way to win despite being outgained and despite giving up almost 500 yards of total offense. I think against Utah, they gave up more than 500 yards of total offense. So somehow, defensively, they are really struggling. As much as we thought the defense was going to be really good this year, the offense has had to turn it up. Now, granted, BYU had a pick 6, and that was huge. That was a big part of the game. And we'll talk about Satwell in just a second. But 495 to 410 in total yards. The difference of this game was the takeaways, right? 4 takeaways. One kind of came in not garbage time, but it was at the end of the game when it was pretty much decided. Now that obviously interception by Evan Johnson sealed the game, but either way, 4 takeaways. One was a pick 6. BYU was also 3 of 3 on 4th down, and Iowa State I think was 1 of 3. So they did not convert as many, and that was huge. I thought BYU's ability to keep possessions alive on fourth down was massive. Obviously, they were able to score on most of those possessions. What about the penalties, Tosh? Because Iowa State had zero penalties in the first half. And it's funny that literally the kickoff coming out of halftime was their first penalty of the game, and it was a kick out of bounds.
Which is, you have to call it. So it's not even a judgment call.
Did you think that I got to halftime and I remember thinking like, wow, I didn't realize like this wasn't a game where I thought like, oh, the refs just blew calls, right? They just didn't see penalties, and therefore Iowa State didn't have any penalties. I thought Iowa State actually played a pretty clean first half. For sure. And when you're scoring as fast as they were scoring, that's one reason they didn't have them on offense. There was times, I think there's a lot of judgment calls on every play. But like you, there was none in the first half that I thought we're getting ripped off. That's a bull crap. Like, I think the refs called a fair game. Yeah, and I think the only controversial call of the whole game, and we'll talk about it now, it was that punt. I got one more, but keep going. The punt, okay. Okay, let's talk about the punt first. So the punt that obviously bounced off the Iowa State player's leg. There's this argument that like, oh, he was blocked into him, and it should have been. There's a rule. It's Rule 634 that it shouldn't have been. And I have it here. I actually tweeted kind of a response. So what they do is the NCAA has this rule book. They have their rules. 634 is this rule that talks about how if a player is blocked into a scrimmage kick situation where the action of the block causes him to touch the ball, that touch gets ignored, right? So it would just be like still be a live ball. It's not a fumble. It's not up for recovery. But when there are two, and I'll read this here real quick. So and then we'll kind of we'll break this down. So the rule is they give a different interpretation. So as part of the rule book, they give these different scenarios of how to interpret this rule. So 634 is interpreted in this scenario. It says, as the punted ball rolls along the ground, punt receiver B2. So in this case, we'll say Iowa State's player is blocking A88, which we'll say is BYU's player, to prevent him from downing the ball. Do two players are still engaged when the ball bounces into Iowa State player's leg? BYU's player recovers at the Iowa State 30, and the ruling is that it's BYU's ball, 1st and 10 at the 30. This is not a forced touching, although Iowa State was in contact with BYU when he touched the ball. This touching was not caused by the contact. The game clock starts on the snap. So that is the exact scenario. That's the onus, right? Is that the touching has to be caused by the contact. And you can say, yeah, they're engaged, and yeah, I don't remember who the BYU player was. Mo Bamba was the one that recovered it, but yes, they were engaged, and yes, they're obviously kind of doing this little dance where they're moving towards the ball, but it's not the contact itself, meaning BYU's player doesn't shove him into the ball, right? Yeah. Or vice versa, right? So and the Iowa State guy was just as engaged in that as the BYU guy. When the BYU guy tried to break off, when he realized, the Iowa State guy was still holding him and pushing him. So it wasn't a situation where the BYU guy was just bullying him into that contact into the ball. Yes, and I've actually seen games in the past. I don't know if it's NFL or college, but I've actually seen games where the kicking team will like gang up on a single player and almost like try and pick him up and drop him on the ball. I can't imagine now. I don't know if that's a penalty, right? That's not really a penalty, but it just doesn't count as, it's just not. The touch is ignored. Correct. Right. The touch in that case is ignored. It's not a live ball up for recovery. But this scenario, they're both engaged. They're both just kind of dancing towards the ball. And I love that after the game, I don't know if it was Parker. I don't think it was Parker. No, it was Parker because Parker's a kick returner. So after the game, I think it was Parker said Papinga told the team he had been scouting Iowa State's return game, their return plan, and or film at least. And he noticed that their gunners did not pay attention to the ball. When it was kicked short, they just don't pay attention. And it's crazy that came to fruition, right? That's what game planning is. Yeah. And that's why it matters. And, we'll talk about, is BYU lucky in a second. But that type of scouting and that type of film review it negates this idea of like, oh, BYU was just lucky because it bounced off of his leg. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say that. Like it's an oblong shaped ball, like it's unpredictable. You don't know where it's going to bounce. But at the end of the day, Papinga is getting his guys prepared to potentially take advantage of an Iowa State punt return team that doesn't pay attention to the ball, and it worked.
That's really, really cool. I didn't realize that they had picked up on that pre-game. The other call that I'd be mad about if I was an Iowa State fan was Trey Alexander getting that guy's face mask in the end zone. I mean, it was for a split second, but if you're a BYU fan and the roles are reversed, we're freaking out. How is that not a PI?
That's fair.
Otherwise, pretty good game. And these refs are, I mean, just like every player, they're never going to have a perfect game. They're going to miss stuff. They get stuff. I think that guy couldn't see it. Like, yes, it was right in front of him, but he had players in his way. He would have called that if he saw it.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, it was for a split second. You don't know where his eyeballs are, right? Like, Correct. Are they looking at the face mask? Are they looking at another
their
hand
arms,
or whatever? Yeah, their hand fighting. It happens, right? And sure, that's controversial. At the end of the day, like they still won by 14. They would have had to score again. And that penalty puts them on the 2, so that's not an automatic touchdown. There's a lot that can still go into that game, but that was how it's interesting that like I saw a lot of comments to that punt live ball recovery that were like explaining the rules and saying that's not legally pushed him into it, and that's just not the case, right? That we just interpreted the rule, we saw the rule interpretation via the NCAA rulebook, and that's not the case. True fans know just how sweet a Holy War victory is. So Cougars, this one's for you. Introducing the Pride of Provo collection, a fresh drop built for those who wear true blue like armor, featuring the Air Bear tee, camo Cougars hoodie, and classic Cosmos scuba hoodie. This lineup brings confidence, comfort, and Cougar heart to every matchup. From the stands to the street, show your pride. Shop the Pride of Provo collection at store.cougarboard.com today, and we'll make sure your gear gets to you before kickoff. Rise, roar, represent. Cougar fans, nothing fuels game day like championship-level barbecue. At R&R Barbecue, we smoke our meats low and slow, serve up crave-worthy slides, and keep the good times rolling. Whether you're tailgating, celebrating a win, or just hungry for real barbecue, R&R's got you covered. R&R Barbecue, rooted in flavor, raised in smoke. I thought there were a couple other kind of pivotal moments of this game, Tosh, and I want to kind of break them down a little bit. Obviously, the Logan Latui interception was important, and not because of the outcome of the game, outcome of that possession. I think they only got a field goal out of it, but because of the momentum, right? Iowa State had just scored a touchdown. They had just, I don't know if they were up 14-7 or tied 7, but either way, it was early in the game, and Iowa State had all the momentum in the world, and they were driving again. They just
about to blow the doors open.
Absolutely, and they had a massive run 2 plays before that. They had that one-handed catch by their tight end that was like
crazy.
Top 10, SC top 10 worthy, right? Yeah. And the very next play, as the crowd buzz is still kind of ongoing from that previous one-handed catch, Logan Latui just shuts it down. And it was literally like we're watching on TV, but you can literally see just like the stadium deflate because of that interception. And so like was it the pick 6 from Satuala? No, right? But it was as pivotal in the sense that Iowa State lost all the momentum they had, and I think from that time on they only scored 10 points.
Yeah.
So they must have had 14 at the time. They only scored 10, right? It was 24. They scored 21 in the game, or 24 in the game. So that was a big play. Obviously, we talked about the punt recovery. The other one that kind of is going a little bit underappreciated was Iowa State was driving on third down, handed it off to Carson Hansen, their running back, and Carson blows through a wide open hole, and he's got pretty much an open path into the end. It's a foot race, right?
Yeah.
A foot race with Therian Alexander. And for Therian to just catch him inside the 10, and, at the time, we're thinking like, they're going to score anyway. Like, great effort, but they're going to score anyway. For them to only get a field goal out of that possession was huge.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a huge hustle play. What I love, there's no quit in this BYU team.
Yeah.
And you see that as a collective unit. And on any given play, you can often see that with individuals. And I freaking loved him chasing him down. And yeah, it saved us 4 points, and it really kept us in the game close enough that I think our guys still had hope. And again, there's no quitting them, and all of a sudden, boom, we blow it open the other way.
Yeah. And again, just a huge moment that kind of goes underappreciated in game. But when you look back and you think, man, they only got a field goal out of that, and they took, essentially, Iowa State was poised to score and go up 4 at that time. For them to kick a field goal and tie it at 27 was massive.
It was the little things like that that made it so.
Or tied at 24.
You could say, wow, it feels like they kicked our butts, but it's still like close.
Yeah.
And it's the little things like that that really matter to be able to have you be able to hang around.
And that's like when you look at, Iowa State outgaining BYU 495 to 410, it's those plays that turn the pendulum the other way, right? It doesn't matter that you got a 65-yard carry down to the 5-yard line. You got a field goal out of it. And that's the type of stuff that like those are like effort plays.
Yes.
That make it so that even though you get outgained 495 to 410, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're only going to get a field goal out of that, and we can deal with 3 points after a 65-yard run. The other play on offense that I thought, and these aren't like underappreciated plays. These are like the two, the pick six and Parker Kingston's second touchtown catch.
Yeah.
Where he says, "That's my effing ball." On live TV, right? You saw that, right?
Yeah.
He says, "My effing ball." Love that from Parker. And so these aren't really underappreciated plays, but what I loved about it was the concept of these plays. So just to break down the Parker Kingston second touchdown, I went back and watched it. It's a max protect pass play, which means I think Rex was in. So Preston Rex is blocking. Carson Ryan's blocking. There's only 2 receivers running routes on that whole play. And it was necessary, too, because
they brought the house.
They brought 6 guys and spied Bear. So there's essentially no way for Bear to get out of it, right, if he is under pressure. And he was under pressure pretty quick despite the max protect. So Iowa State has like 3 or 4 guys in coverage. And really Chase and Parker, there was like one guy on both of them on that left side of the field because the other 2 guys were on the other side of the field. The other 2 defenders were on the other side of the field guarding space, guarding nothing, just green grass. And so I think Bear had the option to go to Chase. And I actually thought, man, why are you not throwing that ball like to the left side to Chase? But for him to throw to Parker, and it's a tight window, right? Because the safety comes over and almost at least knocks it away. But for Parker to go up and get it, he just wanted it more.
Big time throw. It showed a lot of better catch. Big time catch is the biggest. Where that defender, I thought maybe even had a better chance at it, but Parker went up and just grabbed it, and he's not a big guy, but he's obviously a freak athlete. This game and the last several have showed me Bear is really building a lot of trust in Parker Kingston, and Parker is not letting him down. What's funny, at the beginning of the year, Parker looked off. He got replaced on punt return. He had the case of drops. He kind of was becoming, again, we're a Cougar Board show, he was becoming the Cougar Board scapegoat, where a lot of people piling on Parker. You don't see that lately. Like, he has taken over multiple of our last several games and had some of the biggest plays of the year, where he's such a freak athlete that when you give him the ball, he can turn like a medium play into a big play. Yeah. And Bear seems to have recognized that and really gives him a lot of targets.
Yeah, and I said early on, and I'm kind of, I obviously want it to be right, but I said Carson Ryan would be BYU's second leading receiver. And obviously Carson's still a great target downfield. He only had 2 catches in this game. But Parker has become that guy. In fact, I would say it's 1A, 1B.
Correct.
Between Parker and Chase.
Yeah.
Chase, I think, had another drop. I think it was thrown behind him in this game. But he also had a monster catch on fourth and what?
Where 4? It was high and he got face mask. And that was an NFL catch right there.
So it's like there's some give and take with Chase. And Parker's had his own fair share of drops as well. But between the 2, 15 catches, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were pivotal in this game, and they needed to be for Bear, right? That was what Bear needed in this game was targets to throw to that could not only catch the ball, but then get some yards after catch. And that's what both of them did. By the way, Bear in passes over 15 yards, so 15 plus yards, 6 of 7.
Excuse me. 6 of 7 for passes.
Is that impressive?
Yeah,
right?
it made me sneeze.
6 of 7 in passes 15 yards or more downfield. Bear Bachmeier is no longer a dink and dunk.
No.
Nickel and dime passer.
No, they're gonna push you. They're gonna put pressure on your defense. His confidence level, and again, we saw it in this game more than others. But what I really like too, and we have some players with some real confidence and swagger. Like Bear has this like quiet confidence where it doesn't matter how big the moment is. Like he believes in himself that he's going to be able to pull through and make the biggest play, and he does. I also think Parker, being this little guy, but he's got this swagger and tough guy, and again he's talking trash as he catches it. Like I think BYU needs guys like that. That I think when we're at our best, that we're not actually the choir boy Cougs, but that we are
the cardiac Cougs.
You know, that we are in a lot of ways emulating Kalani, where we're freaking tough. You would not want to mess with us. We stay humble, we stay hungry, but then you sprinkle in some dudes that are not afraid to talk a little smack. And I think that's when the Cougars are at their best. And we got that this year with this football team.
Yeah, and it's the kind of smack that I appreciate, right? He's not going to the player and yelling, "My ball," right? He's just saying, "My ball." Like that's he's just
to
excited.
himself and to the universe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to the big microphone that's right in front of him. But Bear, I want to go back to Bear real quick because I watched a snippet of a podcast this morning that said Bear's got some, obviously they were praising Bear, but they said that their criticism of Bear was that he still makes poor decisions and that he has happy feet. And I'm trying to think of yes, he's made poor decisions in past games. I think this game, I don't think there was a poor decision that he made. Games.
I can't think of a poor decision in the Utah game either.
Correct. I don't. In fact, it's funny because we had the exact same scenario against Iowa State that we did against Colorado where he threw an interception. It wasn't a bad snap, but there was a situation where Bear fumbled the ball, right? The ball's on the ground. It bounces. I don't know how this happened twice this season. It bounces right up into his chest.
Yeah.
But he catches it on the run and is able to avoid the pressure. But instead of throwing it downfield for a potential interception, he just threw it out of bounds.
Yeah.
And it's, again, these kind of underappreciated plays. One more underappreciated play because I thought the happy feet comment, I thought the exact opposite during this game. I thought Bear was incredibly poised in the pocket, and we've kind of seen this all year. I don't think he gets incredibly shaken up, right? I don't think he gets really rattled. Mm-hmm. I've yet to see him be rattled in a game. And one prime example of this was in the third quarter early on. Iowa State just rushed 3, right? So they blitzed a lot. We'll talk about his PFF actually had he was 10 of 15 against the blitz according to PFF, so he was good against the blitz. But this specific play they only rushed 3, and you'll remember just based on how I describe what happened on this play. But Bear doesn't panic, right? So there's 5 guys blocking 3, no one's really getting through the line. Bear and most mobile quarterbacks, they just get antsy in the pocket, and they the ones that don't really have the awareness, the pocket awareness. After 3-4 seconds, they're rolling out. They're rolling out of the pocket because they don't want to be there anymore. They just feel antsy. They feel anxious. Bear just stands there. He's standing there for probably a good 5-6 seconds. And I'm probably over exaggerating. It's probably 3 or 4. But it felt like he could have easily rolled out and run for it, or at least rolled out of the pocket to find an open receiver, and he didn't feel the need to. So I thought he had the exact opposite of happy feet, and it resulted in a long pass where Parker's just standing on the sideline waiting for the ball to come to him because he's that open, right? Yeah. And as soon as he catches, he gets knocked out of bounds. Matt Campbell helps him up, right?
Yeah.
Huge fan of Matt Campbell for that. That was awesome. But that play, I think, illustrated Bear's ability to just stand in the pocket, not pursue, but scan the field, find his receivers. He probably only had 2 or 3 receivers running routes, and find the open guy. And that I think you don't see that in a freshman quarterback.
No, and really he's not a freshman quarterback anymore. He's got 8 games under his belt. He's been in key moments. He's came up big. The only thing he hasn't been tested on is how he responds after a loss.
Yeah.
But the guy has lots of experience now, and he is a freaking gamer. I love me some Bear Bachmeier.
So a couple other more shout-outs here. Obviously, Satuala's pick 6. He had 10 tackles to go along with that. Tanner Wall also had 9. And I'm not sure if I'm concerned. Obviously, our safeties are phenomenal. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Rader comes back because Satuala is playing every bit as good as Rader did when he was healthy. But, it's good to have the depth either way. It's a good problem to have. But 9 tackles from your safety usually means you're not getting stops at the first level. They're getting to the second level, and that's not good.
It is 2 things. One, our safeties are elite. I think both Wall and Satuala are NFL caliber safeties. we're also being naive and putting our head in the ground if we don't think that there's been a fall off specifically from the linebackers. And I think it's a lot of that's injuries. Yes, Glasgow and Kelly have been out there, but they haven't looked the same as they did several weeks ago when they were healthy. And so it's just the little things. They're still making a big play here and there, but they're a step slower. People are breaking a tackle, and we need to get those guys healthy, because when we have those elite safeties and elite linebackers, that's when we can really put up like we did against Stanford, where we just make them look silly.
Yeah. Yeah, and you wonder how healthy like Jack Kelly is. I think Glasker's probably still a little bit gimpy too, off of his injury from, what was it, the West Virginia game?
His ankle, seems to still not be right. And then Kelly got hurt again at the end on the very last possession of this game. So
yeah. Let's go through that real quick, because I did get some kind of preliminary injury report, and this is not official, and I don't take this with a grain of salt. I don't think BYU has released anything about these guys. LJ is likely not going to be back for Texas Tech, is what I'm hearing, which would be a massive blow. Again, it's kind of ride or die then with Bear. Can Bear carry this offense again against probably a better defense than they saw against Iowa State? That's going to be a massive if. But LJ, I would not expect to see him back against Texas Tech. Yeah,
I heard that he's got like an AC joint thing going on, and it just depends on what level it is.
Yeah,
but the early signs are it's probably going to be more than a 2 week needed to get him right.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't even know what the injury was. It may be AC joint, but it looked like he came out after getting hit in the ribs.
No, he lowered his shoulder, and then they showed him. He says immediately to Harvey Younga, "My shoulder."
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay, I saw he said something to Harvey and was like wincing. I didn't know that's what he said. So that's that. I don't know. That's as official as we're probably going to get.
And then I know, I've heard from someone that knows too.
Okay.
That it's a shoulder dislocation, and that I've also heard from somebody else, more specifically, it was an AC joint.
That's massive. I mean, that's not a good. I mean, look,
if it's a level 1 though, it's only a 1 or 2 week thing, but it goes all the way to level 6, and I have no idea on what level it was.
Yep.
And so
and I'm sure we'll find out once we get closer to the game. Obviously, they'll put out the injury report, and we'll see: is he questionable? Is he doubtful? I think he's going to be at best questionable coming into that Texas Tech game.
Yeah.
Kelly is very much a 50-50. Jack Kelly coming back. It sounds like he injured his other shoulder, or at least like his other arm.
That's what I've heard.
It wasn't the same shoulder.
Yeah.
Which is kind of concerning. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But either way, he's hurt, and it's very much a maybe for Texas Tech. Raider Demuni's likely back. Sione Moa likely not back. Sialia Serra was kind of an interesting, he just kind of went out, and I don't think anybody really.
I don't know what happened to him either.
But he's likely back. I think it was very much a precautionary thing that they held him out for the rest of that game, but he'll be likely back. The one name we haven't heard and talked about in a long time is JoJo Phillips.
Yeah.
Likely back.
And he started this year as our number 2 receiving option, and he looked good in his first game, and then, broken collarbone, but it's been long enough that he's expected to be back.
Hopefully back against Texas Tech. It's very much likely, and it's going to be interesting to see now how targets change. And I think having LJ out and JoJo back maybe changes the complexion of the offense. Maybe A-Rod is dialing up some more 3 receiver play calls instead of having LJ in. He's going to bring Rex in, or maybe bring another blocker in to protect Bear to find his open receivers. But JoJo back would be pretty massive, I think. Obviously, it's not going to make up for the loss of LJ if LJ is out against Texas Tech, but another target for Bear's great. Let's get to you and I kind of were talking before the show about the way BYU, and this is why I think BYU is not getting the respect that it deserves, at least in terms of actual when you look at the resume, right? BYU's resume against everyone else's resume, there's no reason for BYU to not be top 8, top 7 potentially. But I think there's some factors that go beyond kind of the resume and the box score and the results of the games. And the last 2 games kind of illustrate this, which is BYU's winning. And again, we talked about this very early on in this show. BYU is winning despite statistically getting beat in terms of total offense. and total defense, right? Like they're getting outgained in yards and, more first downs and better third down conversion rate. The other teams are playing better holistically throughout the game, but BYU is making the plays that matter the most. And so the question is BYU just getting flat out lucky?
No. BYU is not getting lucky in the sense that if you're comparing that relative to other teams. Yes, in any given game, can the ball bounce the right way? Can a call go your way? Of course. But on a whole scale of things, we are at 21 games in which BYU is 19-2. In the 2 losses, they were both by less than a score. Like at some point, we got to believe these guys are just freaking winners and they win the close games and they make the extra plays. They gave up 0 turnovers in this Iowa State game. When you do that, you give yourself a chance. The other thing about it, and this is more of a thing narrative outwardly spoken last year, but it's still an undertone this year of people last year were saying, yeah, but I just think that their turnovers seem fluky. And if they didn't get that key turnover, they wouldn't have won. But at some point, we just got to give credit to Jay Hill's scheme. The players that we have, they create turnovers. Like last year, we were interception machines. This year, again, we're going into big places. Iowa State hadn't lost in over 20 games at home. Iowa State hadn't given up over 300 yards passing in over 20 games, period. That's not luck to go in there and break both those streaks, force 3 turnovers against an NFL quarterback. Like at some point, and I'm really talking to BYU fans, let's just start believing and saying that this team's legit. I think, yes, national media, they're going to hate. But if we're not like backing them and if we don't believe and if we're not outraged that we got ripped off, and we should have been a college playoff team last year, but I think we still have this mindset that maybe we were lucky. And again, people's predictions going into this year, even BYU fans, were not believing enough. But here we are 8-0. Like, we've got to be leading the chorus that no, this is not luck, that these guys are just freaking good.
Yeah. So I agree and disagree, right? I'm going to go with the agree part first because that's what I do. I'm very risk averse, right? Controversy averse. So I look at like last year, Kansas State was an extremely unlucky game, right? So for BYU fans or fans outside of BYU to say, "Oh, BYU's just lucky," like if they were lucky, they would have beaten Kansas. That punt. Yeah. That punt would have gone their way, right? That was an extremely unlucky play. And it, if it goes BYU's way, even if it's, recovered. Yeah.
That punt was fluky. There were several PI calls that were pretty questionable, that were huge.
And then Arizona State, right? JoJo Phillips, I think, had a drop touchdown pass in that game. Chase Roberts was 1 yard short of scoring a touchdown that would have, I think, they lost by a touchdown, so it would have sent it to overtime or something. I don't know. It was that Hail Mary play that I think they ruled incomplete, but he caught. A yard short. Unlucky, right? And so I think luck goes both ways. Now the question is BYU this year more or less unlucky than maybe your average team? It kind of depends on, how do you actually measure luck? And I'm going to take an eye test approach to this because I don't think there's any really other way to measure this. But when I look at BYU play against good teams, there are times where they look like the better team. There are times where they don't. That's not to say they're a bad team, but let's just take Utah, for example. Actually, let's take Iowa State, for example. Because I thought for most of this game, Iowa State looked like the better team. Now, BYU came back, and that's not luck. I don't think BYU's ability to come back and tie it or take a 27-24 lead, that's not luck, right? We're gonna throw that out there. What I thought was quote unquote lucky was obviously that punt recovery, that punt live ball recovery. That's the ball bouncing the way it does. And we did say, Papinga obviously scouting that, and so that you create your own luck, right? Yeah. In that sense. And I'm kind of like formulating this in my head because maybe I'm changing my own mind here. The couple other plays that I wrote down were Iowa State had an open receiver in the first half on like a wheel route, and Rocco Beck just like threw way behind him, wide open for a touchdown. Right, he would have walked into the end zone. Massive play that got overturned. I think they kicked a field goal out of that possession. They had an open receiver in the fourth quarter drop a ball as he's like walking into the end zone. So again, I think it was Therian Alexander took a terrible angle on it and missed it, right? And so the receiver's open, it bounces off his shoulder. You could say, well, Therian distracted him.
Yeah.
That's fair, right? You could say that. Then you've got the holding penalty. They score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, nullified by a holding penalty. Lucky? I don't know. It was definitely a hold, right? You created your own luck by forcing the offensive player to hold you. And then also in the second half, I think it was third quarter, they're driving. Rocco Beck throws a pass deep in the end zone. And I think this was after we talked about the Therian Alexander chase down of was it Hansen? Their running back, and they still could have scored a touchdown, but Rocco Beck threw to his receiver in the back of the end zone. The receiver couldn't put his foot in bounds when he caught the ball. You're literally like 2 or 3 inches off. Lucky, or is it just a bad throw by Rocco Beck? Like,
it's both.
I think it's both. I think there is an element of luck to this, and I'll finish with this. I think that. I'm concerned that BYU, we'll talk about the conference championship race. I'm concerned that BYU is not a good enough team skill-wise, where if a play maybe goes against them, an unlucky play goes against them, or an unlucky handful of plays goes against them, they cannot overcome that. Meaning they've got Texas Tech, right? They've still got Texas Tech. They've still got Cincinnati.
Tough games.
TCU is not an easy game, even though it is at home. I think TCU is much more winnable than I originally thought. But Texas Tech and Cincinnati are on the road, and they're against top 20 teams at least. I don't know if BYU has the skill set to win those games on the road. And I'm concerned about that because if you get 2 losses in this conference, you're likely not making a conference championship game.
And I agree on all of that. So I think a couple things I'd say. One, I have people that are BYU haters, and they say, hey, BYU's lucky, they're overrated. And why they're saying that is because if BYU does trip, then they're going to be able to say, see, I told you. But the reality is, in a given season, there's only one team usually that goes undefeated, or 0. So that's a chicken crap argument because, like, like out of the whole 130 teams, they're saying that everyone's overrated if they lose one game. Second is BYU fans, and I catch myself on this, and I don't tell anyone how to fan, but that they want to kind of protect themselves too.
Yes. That's me. That's very much me.
And so they'll say that hey, and part of that comes from this BYU team. We're not blowing out good opponents when we play them. There's always times they look better. There's times we look better. But in college football, there's not many teams that will consistently blow out good opponents. In this year's, there's 0. Like Alabama already lost to a bad Florida State team. Miami looked like that, and then they lost to a very mediocre Virginia team. Like it's a kind of a once in every 10 years that we get a team that just can blow out everybody. And so what you need to be able to blow out the bad teams. And BYU's shown some ability to do that this year. But when you play good teams, you just have to find a way to win. And BYU is elite at that. And yes, I don't think we're going to go undefeated over the next 4 games. Real talk, I don't. Mm-hmm. But I like our chances against anybody for us to find a way to win because this team has shown an ability to do that at a level that is very, very, very rare at BYU and in college football, to be able to go into tough environments against tough teams and find a way to win.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you. I don't think BYU wins all of its next 4 games. If it does, it is a top 4 team and pretty much a lock. Doesn't matter what happens in the conference championship. They are a lock for the playoffs. That's like best case scenario, obviously. Cougar alumni know what it means to rise and shout, and that's exactly what TrueWear Services helps your business do. They specialize in merch production, swag, uniforms, custom printing and design, plus web stores and fulfillment, so repping your company, team, or school is seamless. You've built the brand, now it's time to showcase it. Partner with TrueWear Services today and give your organization the same pride and polish you showed in Cougar Blue. Go to truewearservices.com/cougarboard to get started. This episode is brought to you by Aptive Pest Control. Aptive believes that every home should be enjoyed. They tailor their pest control treatment plans to target pests when and where they're most active. Plus, if you see pest activity between treatments, Aptive will return to take care of the problem at no additional cost. It's their way of making sure every customer is satisfied and every pest is controlled. If pests stay away, Aptive is why. Visit AptivePestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Mention this promotion to get your initial treatment for just $29. That's AptivePestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Terms and conditions apply. Get home field advantage with Aptive. Let's look at just some scenarios, though, where, in other words, how many losses can BYU afford? And I think this is important because of who they play and who is also, because BYU is the only, BYU and Cincinnati are the only two undefeated in-conference teams. You've got Texas Tech and Houston that have one loss. Those, to me, and maybe you can throw Utah in there depending on how they play this week, probably against Cincinnati. You can maybe throw Utah into the mix. But I think those four teams, it's going to come down to their overall conference record, not their overall record, their conference record at the end of the season. And I look at Houston, for example. Houston finishes their season with West Virginia at home, at UCF, which is not a terribly raucous environment, right? And UCF is terrible, is not a good team. And so their fans are going to be very lackluster if they even show up. They have TCU at home and they go to Baylor. And Baylor, again, not a great team. They might be playing for a bowl bid in that game. So there may be something to play for. Their fans may show up. Baylor, I think, has decent fans that will show up. And so maybe that's like the best opportunity for Houston to lose a game. But there's a very real possibility and a very likely possibility that Houston finishes the season with one loss, right? So that would put them into the conference championship. I think they're probably the biggest lock for a conference championship. You look at Texas Tech now, and this is where BYU comes into play, right? Because BYU plays both Texas Tech and Cincinnati. Tech is at Kansas State next week. They then host BYU, they host UCF, then they're at West Virginia. BYU is really their biggest chance of losing, right? If they don't, they're finishing with one loss in conference. Cincinnati, very similar. They have BYU also at home. Before that, though, they go to Utah, they host Arizona, and they go to TCU. So I think there's a very real possibility. Tough road. TCU probably has the toughest road out of those four teams.
Cincinnati.
What did I say, TCU? Uh-huh. Cincinnati probably has the toughest road out of those top four teams. And really, it's going to we can talk more about this next week after they play Utah, because Utah will very much likely beat them. In my opinion, they beat them. So, but even without Cincinnati, you've got three teams, two of which have probably the easiest slate left other than Texas Tech playing BYU. And it could very well be Houston in the conference championship game and then the winner of Texas Tech and BYU.
Fully agree. So to add some other stuff to that, one is AI gives BYU a 15% chance of winning the next four games.
AI?
Yeah.
What is AI? Like
artificial intelligence.
You're talking about like ChatGPT giving BYU.
Correct.
You're relying on
just Google. The
Gemini?
The Gemini at the top of Google.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's pulling. It's not making that up. It's pulling that from some FBI or Vegas.
Artificial intelligence. I know what AI is.
I can source it if we want. And then if you go, what's their odds of going 3-1 over those four games? It tells me 41%. Yeah. And so what that does mean, though, is we have a 56% chance of going 3-1 or better.
Yeah,
and you're not buying into the Google AI.
I don't. I mean, it's sure, but even like PFF and ESPN's FPI, they're giving BYU like a 60% chance to make the playoffs.
Correct.
Not necessarily the conference championship. I don't know what the odds are.
But that adds, I think, those two kind of stats, and that they could just be an at-large if they didn't make it. But I think they overweigh. The computers don't realize the SEC and Big Ten bias of the humans that are selecting.
Yeah.
And so BYU needs to go undefeated or just lose one game. If we lose two games, things get real messy, and we could get screwed like we did last year. And there's a real chance that Utah could make it in instead of BYU if we lose 2 games. Because you get into too many people are all tied, and then like the head-to-heads don't like work out clean, and then they go to other things. And
I mean, it's going to depend on Houston, right? I think if Houston loses 2 games, I don't think Utah gets in, to be completely honest. I just don't think mathematically there's a real – if they beat Cincinnati, there's a chance. But even then, there's 3 teams that with at most 1 loss if Houston wins the games they're supposed to win and Texas Tech wins the games they're supposed to win. There's a real possibility that you have Tech, Houston, and BYU all with 1 loss. And in that case, Utah's on the outside looking in. And like – so, like, let's look at this scenario. I think Utah only makes it in. And this is not a Utah podcast, so I really just don't care other than if they're playing BYU in the conference championship. But if, let's say BYU loses to Texas Tech and Cincinnati, right? 2 losses. Utah beats Cincinnati this weekend. That gives Cincinnati, no, that would still only give Cincinnati, they would have to lose another game. No, Cincinnati has 1 loss. No, they don't have a loss. That would still give them only 1 loss. So Cincinnati would have to find another loss somewhere else. Houston would have to lose 2 of the games that we read off, right, for there to be a tiebreaker, and Texas Tech would have the 1 loss, and they would be in, right? But that second spot, I don't see a mathematical scenario where Utah gets in with 2 losses, other than there being a massive upset or 2, to 2 of those top 4 teams currently. Obviously, we'll kind of continue talking about this as we go throughout the rest of the season. I love that we're talking about BYU at least being in the discussion, and there's a little bit of this kind of battered fan syndrome, and last year didn't help, right?
Correct.
Where it just didn't. BYU looked so good through 9 games, or however many games. I think it was 9 games, 9-0.
Yeah.
And they just like 1 slip up, literally 1 slip. Even if they lose to Arizona State, I don't even care about that game. 1 slip up against Kansas ruin the entire season. And
we had to go 2-1 in the last 3, and we went 1-2.
And it takes you back to like the Independence days and the Mountain West days, where it's like it doesn't matter how much you're blowing teams out and how you beat Oklahoma early in the season. You beat TCU in 2006. Like, you have this really good schedule and beat really good teams. It does not matter if you don't go undefeated or at most have 1 loss. And we're at that point now. It does not matter. And it's funny because like Utah made it to their conference championship, the Pac-12, twice with 4 losses?
Yeah, and they had 3 losses in conference.
Wild.
Yeah.
How do they do that? If you want to talk about luck, and look, I'm not gonna. You can clip this if you want, Sean. I don't care. If you want to talk about luck, how about making it into a conference championship game with 3 or 4 losses?
Correct.
That's lucky, right?
Yeah.
That's not happening in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You are not getting into the conference championship game with more than 1 loss, at most maybe 2.
Yep.
And if it's Utah again, I swear, dude, I'll be very happy for them.
Your buddy AI gives them an 8.7% chance.
Great. I trust AI now. Yeah, I'm very much a fan.
So it's incredible that BYU gives us things to talk about for as long as we did in football, because we're freaking good. We're undefeated after week 9 in the college football season. What's incredible as well is basketball. We have the number 8 ranked basketball team, and that we start real games next week.
Yeah.
We were talking before the show, and we've seen this a few different places, but BYU is top 10 in both football and basketball. First time in BYU history. The closest we've ever been to that was in 1981 when we had Jim McMahon at quarterback. We had Danny Ainge on the basketball team, and football was ranked 8th at its peak, and basketball was ranked 15th. And so this current era we're living in and breathing in right now, we are at the best in those 2 sports combined that we've ever been.
Yeah.
Fun times with a real fun basketball season coming up.
And it's for obvious reasons, I'm really excited to talk about basketball. Football has just taken over the conference. I put BYU basketball in the rundown and put nothing. I was like, we should talk about BYU basketball. And I was like, nah, this rundown's we've gone 48 minutes and we've talked enough about football. I do want to say they looked pretty good against North Carolina. We don't have to break down plays or break down individual players or anything. I thought they looked pretty good. I'm still a little bit concerned about Richie Saunders. I think their half-court sets are a little bit iffy, and that just is going to come, I think, with some repetition and some actual game time. But we'll continue to talk about them throughout the year. I thought their game against North Carolina was pretty impressive to watch, though.
Absolutely. My takeaways were that one, we looked like we were every bit as good of athletes, if not better athletes, than North Carolina, which is incredible to say. Last year we had a special season, but there was multiple matchups that we just looked out-athleted. Both matchups against Houston, I was at the Alabama game. They looked like better athletes, and then I watched Duke play right after that. You were there as well with me. And Duke just looked like in a different stratosphere of athletes than BYU. And I don't think they're going to this year. Like, we've got some ballers and tall, long, freak athletes at lots of positions. Last thing I will say on an individual player is I've been shocked at Boop how good he looks.
Hadim Boop?
Yes.
Boop?
He's hitting corner threes too. He was open.
Yeah.
But if we can have our 5 rebounding and playing defense and hustling and can hit open corner threes.
Backup 5 too,
correct.
Right?
Like, I'm excited about this team. We'll continue to gel. I think Richie's going to find his little niche. I'm not – if that's the guy we're worried about finding his footing, I think we're in a good spot. Yeah. And so real games start a week from today. So I'm ready to roll.
Yeah. And we'll obviously talk about the basketball team as we get closer to – the start of the season and at least conference play and once we kind of get out of football. But we've got a big football game coming up in 2 weeks. We'll talk more about it next week. We didn't get to talk a whole lot about, Will Hammond, obviously out with an ACL tear. That's could be pretty massive if Baron Morton can't go. It sounds like he'll be healthy to go. But if Baron Morton gets hurt, like, how does that change the landscape? We'll talk more about Texas Tech next week. By the way, we've got Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 coming in. We kind of buried the lead, I feel like, with this. But Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 coming in next week to talk about BYU Texas Tech, to talk about the kind of Big 12 landscape. We'll get him on for at least as long as we can get him on next week. But it should be a pretty fun week. By the way, this was a massive week for us on YouTube, at least. I don't know how it was on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I think we got like 200 or more subscribers in a week. And obviously, like, being Holy War week, we're talking about the rivalry and, a lot of hype around BYU. But this was a massive week for us. And, we're not going to pat ourselves on the back. We have a 9-to-5 job. This is like a side thing that we do. I never thought in a million years that, without player access and without, we don't have credentials to the team, right? We don't have a daily podcast. We do this once a week. And for you guys to listen and to comment on our videos and to leave us reviews, and it means the world to us. And, we don't do this for money. Like, this isn't our full-time jobs. And so we just do it for fun. And if you guys like it, we like it. And we like giving you what you like to hear.
Absolutely. Appreciate our listeners. We got some loyal guys that actually comment every time. And I love to read those and sometimes say stuff back. And it's becoming fun that 3 times yesterday at different things, I had people come up and say, "Hey, I listened to your show. It's awesome." It's real fun.
I've got guys in my ward. And I'm not the most social person, so this is very much a me problem. But guys in my ward that I've never talked to at all, and they're like, "Hey, I love your commentary." So shout out to my ward members. I still probably don't know your names because I'm just bad. I'm just generally
let's
bad.
Get to know those.
Generally bad at that, but anyway, very much appreciate listeners. We will talk about Texas Tech next week. We're gonna have Drake Toll on, and we'll break things down with him. Until then, we'll see ya.
Have a good one.